I totally agree, and I think of a mentor as someone who can see when you're stuck and you don't know that you're stuck. So maybe just tell us a bit about who played that role for you. Who served as your mentor?
Well, I actually am very lucky that I did go work in a male-dominated environment. Fertilizer mining is very male-dominated. There weren't women that were in management when I started in management. So it wasn't like there was women that were higher than I was that I could have a look and say, how did they manage their lives? How did they maneuver these situations? So I was really lucky that I had a few different men that were very good mentors to me. One of them early was the CEO of the company. And potash is a cyclical business. As you well know, if you live here, you read the papers. And so it tends to, they put in too much capacity, the world has to grow to catch up to that capacity, it all balances out, things are good for a while, they put in some more capacity, it starts over again. And it was a time when supply and demand was really out of balance, and we had way too much supply and not enough demand. And we had a sales meeting, and the guy that was the CEO, I was on my way into dinner, and he tapped me on the shoulder and said, and I was young at this point, I was early in my career, and he said, I want to talk to you for a minute. I just want you to know there's going to be a lot of changes around here, and I want you to hang in, because you'll have a good future with this company. He said, all it takes for this business to turn around is a mine can flood in Russia, or China can come in with a big order, and it turns around on a nickel. He said, I've been in this business 30 years, take it from me. And I was kind of like, yeah, like whatever. I'm on my way into the sales meeting dinner, and there's lots of laughter in the background. Well, 2 weeks later, I was on my way down to St. Louis to a meeting. And at that time, I think, was it Frontier Airlines? If anybody's old enough to remember them. I think we stopped in Minneapolis, and I phoned back to the office, and my secretary said, at that time you had to look for a cell phone, or a pay phone in an airport. And my secretary said, are you sitting down? And if anybody's as old as I am, they had little cubicles that had like a little triangle seat. So I kind of, okay, I'm sitting down, and she said, everybody above you except for one has been fired. So I went on the road that week. My mind was not on my sales calls. I went back to the office, and it was a really bad atmosphere because one shoe had dropped, and people were waiting for the other shoe to drop, and they were all afraid they were going to lose their jobs, so they were trying to make other people look bad so they'd look good, so they'd get to stay hired. And eventually, that did happen. A lot of middle management people were gone, and when they were gone, all their jobs were still there to be done, but they were gone. So I was in sales. I looked around and sort of said, okay, we made a commitment to a customer for this. We have to do this. We made a commitment to a customer for this. We have to do this. And so I kind of gathered up a bunch of stuff. And it wasn't an easy place to work. I was doing a lot more jobs than was in my job description. And our salaries were frozen. Our budgets were frozen. We were being asked to do a lot more with less. And in the midst of that, I got another job offer. And it was very tempting to take that job. But the voice of my mentor was a guy that was gone in the firings. His voice came back to me and said, it's going to be, it's going to turn around on a nickel, and, and you'll have a good career here. And I refused that other job and stayed. And it happened exactly as he predicted. And the supply and demand came back into balance. The new management said, well, Betty Ann, you've got a lot more responsibilities, because I'd picked them all up, than your title would say. Let's increase your title and let's give you some more money, and which became my motto, which is go for the responsibility, then go for the title, then go for the money. So he was an early mentor, and if it hadn't been for him passing that along, I would never have had the career at the other job that I had by staying where I was. And if he hadn't given me his ability to see over that horizon, which I couldn't see because I'd never driven that road before, I would have probably left, and it wouldn't have been as good. I wouldn't be having a mentorship program.
Wow.
I'm going to jump in again.
Do it.
Can you hear me? Yes. That's a fantastic story. And was he a formal mentor, or was
No.
it just, no, it wasn't. No, I didn't.
And so
it was just he took a shining to you and
I think he
went
just,
out of his way to
yeah.
give you that advice, and you listened, you paid attention.
When I describe mentorship, I always say that there's the informal mentor who, it could just be somebody that you never even learn their name. You sit beside them on an airplane, you tell them a problem you've got, they share something that gives you a paradigm shift, you look at things differently, you've grown. You leave the airplane and that person, you don't even know who they are, and they have served a role of being what I call a drive-by mentor. At the other end of the spectrum is the formal program like we have at the Edwards School of Business, where there are guidelines as to how often you meet and for how long. And in between are people that you just form a relationship with, and you could turn to them for advice. And one of the jokes that I make with the women in the program is that women are so diligent. You know, men are very good at just asking for advice from somebody else and getting it and kind of carrying on and not worrying about it, whereas women think they should do things right. So women will go to somebody and say, will you be my mentor? And I always say that's like walking up to somebody and saying, will you be my boyfriend? You know, you don't do that. What you do is you go for coffee with somebody and see if there's some chemistry, and you ask their opinion, and if you like their opinion, you maybe go for coffee again. And that's how you gather people that you turn to for mentorship in this whole area in the middle.